Greetings to all of you and a hearty welcome to day 6 of our session on Java-based microservices. If you all recollect, we have already completed 5 sessions on this topic, and till now we have completed many important initial modules, right? Like introduction to microservices. In the afternoon session, you anyway got an introduction to Spring Boot, yeah, and a detailed discussion on Spring Boot. Then we have also spoken about Netflix OSS and Spring Cloud. Under the Spring Cloud projects, we have looked at registry service, which is Eureka, client-side load balancer, which is Spring Cloud Load Balancer, which is which is an alternative to the Netflix OSS product called Ribbon. And in our last session, in our Friday session, we have completed our initial discussions on the circuit breaker, and we are using the Spring Cloud circuit breaker module called Resilience 4G, right? So this is what we are dealing with. We will have to continue with this discussion a little more, and then I will show you the relevant demos. Yeah. So if you all recollect, in our discussion on the circuit breaker or Resilience 4G, you remember that we were saying that Hystrix, which was a very popular circuit breaker pattern, which was available from Netflix OSS, that is no more supported in Spring Boot version 2.4.0 onwards, right? So as an alternative to Hystrix, we can use Spring Cloud Circuit Breaker with Resilience 4G. So if you want to use Resilience 4G with your apps, first step is we will have to add the dependency for Resilience 4G. Yeah. So if you're creating the app from scratch, obviously you could have made that selection in the start.spring.io, or if your app is already there and now you want to use or implement Resilience 4J, you can add this dependency in your pom.xml file. So the group ID is org spring framework.cloud and artifact ID is Spring Cloud Starter Circuit Breaker Resilience 4J, right? So this is step number 1. Once this is done, as step number 2, whichever method you want or in whichever method you want to use circuit breaker, first and foremost, auto wire for an object of type circuit breaker factory. Now, in our example, I was just showing you. In case you want to make a call to, assume you are making a call to some external API like Zomato API that I'm showing you here. Assume you are planning to make a call. What you can do is using the circuit breaker factory, call the create method and just give it a name. Yeah, this is just a string. You are just giving a name to your circuit breaker so that in the dashboard when you see it, you'll be able to identify it. Yeah. So the circuit breaker factory create method will create a circuit breaker for you. Now using the circuit breakers run method, you can use the REST template and or maybe you can use even feel, and using that you can make your regular calls to your method. The beauty is if the method is successful, it should return the appropriate data, or if the method is not successful, you can at least have a fallback method. So here get default reviews is the fallback method. If the circuit breaker is unable to successfully run the method like REST template get for object and this fails, at least there is a fallback method called get default reviews, which is this method. Yeah. Guys, you remember discussing about this already on Friday? Yes, right? So I just quickly took you through so that you are aware of how things can work for you. Yeah. Now what I've done is the second part of this discussion will be, and we also saw it's not mandatory, but in case you want to reconfigure the settings for your Resilience 4J and you want to change the configuration, change some properties, etc., you can always do that. Yeah. So here are some ways of doing it. You can create a configuration class, and inside the configuration class, you can customize your way your Resilience 4J works. Yeah, this is not mandatory, but I've just given you an example of how you can do it. Yeah. The second important part of discussion is, remember, unlike Hystrix, where Hystrix was also supporting Hystrix dashboard. If you are using Spring Cloud Circuit Breaker with Resilience 4J, it does not provide you any dashboard as such. So you will be expected to use another product as a dashboard, and then you have to feed the stream of events from your app to the dashboarding tool, so that the dashboard or the dashboard tool might show you some appropriate data. Yeah. So this is the second part of our discussion. But before I talk about the second part, come let's look at our app where I can implement our circuit breaker. Yeah. Have a look at this, please, all of you. In this example, I am applying a circuit breaker to Cafe Review app. Actually, in my existing Cafe app, I can't simulate much failures, because hardly I have a couple of functionality and I can't simulate a failure within that. So what I've done is, I've not touched the existing methods. Existing methods are the same. Just to show you how a circuit breaker guarded method works, I have made some changes. Okay. And these changes I've done only in the Cafe Review 3. Okay. Cafe Review method. So what I'm going to do is, first let us discuss about Cafe Review, what I'm trying to do here. And then once we have understood, then we will run our app and see how things work. Okay. Meanwhile, let's look at Cafe Review 3. Yeah. In Cafe Review 3, first let me show you the pom.xml file. And in the pom.xml file, you will be able to see some details there. Okay, just a minute. Okay. So the pom.xml file is very similar to like how it was earlier, but few new additional dependencies might have got added. Yeah. So you can see that the parent is still Spring Boot. So in this program, I'm using 2.6.6 of Spring Boot. Then I'm using Java version 1.8 and Java Cloud version this. And you are, I'm sure like you are aware of the general dependencies that we have already added earlier, right? So for example, you want the dependency for Spring Boot Starter Web. Yeah. If you are using Timeleaf, you will require this dependency. Yeah. Plus, if you are planning to use a database, you will add the Spring Starter Data JPA. Plus, if you are wanting to use DevTools, that is there. You are using H2 database, so that dependency also is there. Dependency for test also is there. Plus the dependency management to add the Spring Cloud dependency, that is there. Plus the Spring Boot Maven plugin, that also is there. But apart from these, if you look at it, you will see some new things. Are you all comfortable with line number 39 to 42, please? Yeah. Sorry, 40 to 43, please. Yes, this is the dependency that is required if you want to use Resilience 4J, right? So you can see the dependency that is there here for Spring Cloud Starter Circuit Breaker Resilience 4J. Yeah. Plus, this is the only dependency that is required right now. Then second discussion, I am going to talk about Prometheus dashboard. Yeah. Can you see from line number 45 to 49? There is some dependency that I've added, right? Yeah. So don't worry about it right now. Yeah. We will come back to this later. Okay. For now, don't worry about this. Okay. This is the Prometheus dependency. And Prometheus internally will require help of actuator, because actuator provides you certain additional endpoints through which you can monitor and collect the information about your app, right? So Prometheus internally will depend on actuator. So that dependency also is there. Yep. But for now, don't worry about Prometheus. The second discussion will talk about it. Yep. Now I want you to just see that we have added the dependency for the Spring Cloud Starter Circuit Breaker Resilience 4J. Are you all fine with this step number 1, please? Yes. Now have a look. As I told you, in my simple program, I was not able to simulate any failures using the existing methods. Yeah. So because in the existing methods, I'm not actually calling any external API and all such stuff. So what I'm going to do now is, I am just going to show you one code. Everything else is the same, guys. In my service class, I've made some changes. Let's have a look. Yeah. So one important thing you will see here in my service classes. Can you look at line number 21 and 22, please? What have I done there? Line number 21 and 22. Yes, right. We have auto-wired an object of type circuit breaker factory. So the moment you have added the dependency for your circuit breaker in the pom.xml, you will have access to all these objects which can be auto-wired, right? So first auto-wire an object of type circuit breaker factory. Yeah. Now add review method will remain the same, no change. Get reviews also is the same. Get review followed by an ID. Purposely I've made some change. Yeah, this is actually not required, but I just want to show you how circuit breaker works, right? So that is why I've made these changes. Yeah, I want you to very carefully look at line number 35 to 50. Then also look at this method, please. Yeah, just go through these methods. Spend 2 minutes, just go through these methods. Then we'll have a discussion. Yeah. All this we've already discussed in the slide. So I just want you to look at it to get the context. Go through it, please. So I'm sure you're able to make out what's happening here, right? I've made a lot of changes to just show you how circuit breaker can be used. Yeah. So here I'm using REST template itself just to keep it simple. Of course, you can use your own fee if you require. Yeah. Now, just to simulate, I am having a URL which is pointing to an API from Zomato. But let me just show it to you. This API, if I try to directly access it and make a GET request, this used to work some weeks prior. But can you see that now it is not working, guys? Are you able to see that this API is not working? Yes, right? It is very evident that Zomato has stopped supporting this API. So whoever are using this API, obviously they will have the error. Yeah, but assume this was very important and a failure of it should be nicely handled. So what can I do? Look at what I've done here. Yeah. Yes, this is the URL that I'm planning to access. And here using the circuit breaker factory, I am using a create method to create a circuit breaker and I've given a name to it. Please note in your application, if you are guarding multiple methods one by one, every circuit breaker can have a different name so that you can uniquely identify it. So this is just a string that you are giving. Using the create method, you are creating a circuit breaker. Once the circuit breaker is available, you will call the run method, and in the run method, the first argument is which is the method that you want to run. So for example, using REST template, I'm calling the method called get for object. I'm making a REST call onto this URL. URL is this Zomato URL. And if it is successful, it should have given a list of items. That is what I am returning. Else, that means the second argument to this is throwable. That means if there is any issue with this and it throws an exception, okay, then you call this callback method called get default reviews. So get default reviews is the callback method. And look at what I'm doing here. I am creating an array list of cafe review objects and nothing great. I am manually populating a few cafe reviews. Yeah, I'm adding 3 cafe reviews for the cafe ID 1. Yeah, so I'm saying ratings. Cafe ID is 1 itself. These are the ratings and these are my remarks. Yeah, of course, here I have manually created something, but it's left to you what you want to do in the fallback method. You might want to pick up some old values, or you might want to pick up from your backup and then show it to you. All that you can do. But just to keep it simple, I'm just manually creating some default reviews and I'm returning. Are you all with me, guys? Yeah, just remember this. I've given some remarks like good vegan cafe, limited choice, and great ambience, and all that I've given. Yeah. Now what and this is the method called get review, isn't it? So if I call the get review method and I pass a cafe ID, okay, so this method will be called, right? So that's all I have done. Yeah. I am not planning to change any configurational properties. I want to go ahead with the defaults. So I'm not changing any other properties. Are you all with me, guys? So that's it. No changes are done in Cafe Info 3. And even for this demo, I need not use Cafe Info 3. Yeah, I will directly access the cafe review of this method and then show you how it behaves. Okay, so that's it. We're almost ready. Let us first run. Okay, let us first run it. But please remember, this is acting as a Eureka client, right? So before running this, shall we start the Eureka server and keep it ready? Yes, right. So, and you can see that in my Cafe Review 3, as soon as it runs, it is going to register with the Eureka server, which runs on 8761, right? So first let's run the Eureka server, please. We are starting the Eureka server now. So it's picked up the default profile. So according to the default profile, it should start only one Eureka server, right? On 8761. So let us wait till it completes the startup procedure. So yes, it's almost ready. You can see that it has started the Eureka server app. Yeah. So let's access this localhost 8761. There. So the Eureka server is up, but at present there are no other instances which are running, right? So there are no other instances. So now what we'll do is we'll just go to our cafe review 3. Yeah. Nothing great, as you have seen. One of the method get review followed by a cafe ID that I am trying to simulate a circuit breaker usage, right? So let us run this and then I will try to access that endpoint directly. Yeah. So I'll run this app. So you can see this is cafe review. Let it start. So you can see it's almost done. And since this was enabled to run on any random port, you can see that it has picked up a random port 55532, right? So it has picked up that. And anyway, let us come and refresh it. So you can see this is available. And now let me access it. Yeah. So this is empty. Have a look, please. Yeah. Anyway, I'm just accessing it. My idea was just to access the get review method directly, right? So I'm not planning to add any review. Anyway, my get review method is planning to get the review details from an external API. Let us see whether it works. Yeah. So here I'm directly making a call to get review and I'm passing the cafe ID as 1. Yeah. Let us see what happens. I'm just returning a list directly, right? I'm just returning a list directly. But when I try to access it, can you look at the output and tell me, was it successful in getting the details from that Zomato API? No, right? It is a failure. That is why, where is this data coming from? Good Vegan Cafe, limited choice. Where is it coming from? Correct. It is coming from that fallback method, right? It is coming from that fallback method that we have implemented, right? So, for example, if I just show you, it was not successful in getting this. So that is why it is called this fallback method called get review, get default reviews. And according to get default reviews, this is what is getting returned. Yeah. So it's very evident when you look at it that it has failed. Yeah. But how do you really know whether your circuit breaker has failed or not? What we'll do is we'll just take this. All of you are comfortable with actuator, right, guys? You have learned about actuator in Spring Boot, right? Now, in actuator, one more thing, let me show you. In the application.yml, can you all see an additional property that I've added in line number 36 onwards, 36 to 40? You remember this? Yeah. Management endpoints web exposure include. I have included an asterisk. That means all the endpoints I have exposed, isn't it? Yeah. So this is one thing that you should have taken care. Once you have taken care, when you access your actuator endpoint for this particular get review, you will see a lot of endpoints. Some endpoints will also be for your circuit breaker. Can you see? There is one endpoint available for circuit breakers. Again, the endpoint is available for circuit breaker followed by a name that you can add. Yeah. And for a particular name and a event type. Yeah. Similarly, you can look at circuit breaker events if they have any. Yeah. All such additional endpoints have got introduced. Plus, can you also see there is one more endpoint called actuator/Prometheus that has got added? Yeah, because I have added the dependency for Prometheus also. I will talk about that later. But in my app, I've already added the dependency for Prometheus. Prometheus also depends on actuator. So that endpoint also is available. How do you use this in my next demo? I will show you. But for now, my app is already up and running. It already has circuit breaker dependency. I've also added the Prometheus dependency. And these are some of the endpoints. For example, if I access this endpoint called circuit breakers, let me access this. Okay, nothing great. In my circuit breaker, it only gives me how many circuit breakers are there. If they are there, what are the names of it? So in my example, how many circuit breakers have I created? Only one. And what is the name of it if you recollect? Get review circuit breaker. You remember? Yeah. When you say create and you give a name to it, that is the name that will get displayed under your actuator endpoint. So this is the circuit breaker and get review circuit breaker is the circuit breaker that we can see. Yeah. Similarly, if I access, this will access by the name. Okay. For example, if this is the name, let me try to pass this name. 1 minute. So actually this is a this is a method where get is not supported. Can you see this? It is giving me 405 error. I cannot use this get method to do this. Okay. So you can see that this method is not supported. But anyway, if you make this call, okay, using a post method, etc., on the a postman or etc., that will work. Okay. But this will not work if I just pass this. Yeah. So meanwhile, 1 minute. So here you can see that you also have something called as circuit breaker events. Let us try to access circuit breaker events. When you access circuit breaker events, have a look at this, please. Yeah. Are you able to make out few details here? I want you to just go through it for a minute. Can you see there is a certification path builder exception due to some SSL handshake, and due to that this has not worked. Yeah, the call to that API Zomato has not worked due to some failure in the SSL handshake. Can you see that error? Yes, right. And this is the name of the circuit breaker. And what is the type? At present, the type is error. That means it should ideally be in open state, right? And this is the creation time. This is the error message. How much of duration in milliseconds happen? And what is the transition, state transition? At present, it is not transition. It is still in open case. Yeah. So assume I do this call multiple times. I keep doing this call multiple times. I get the same error. Now, if I come back and look at it, see, every time it fails, it will create an entry like this. See, sometimes it has worked, but you have got some permission problem here, 406. Yeah. And see how many milliseconds it takes. Did state transition happen from open to close? Yeah. No, it has not happened because it is still failing. Can you see those details, guys? Right? So this is how you can directly see this circuit breaker events directly using an actuator endpoint called /actuator/circuit breaker events. This is one way of seeing. So step 1, add the dependency. Step 2, in your service class or in your controller class, use the circuit breaker factory. Create the circuit breaker. Using the circuit breaker run method, call your method. If your method is working fine, it will return the regular data. But if it is not working fine, it will call the fallback method. That's the whole idea. Yeah. But once we run, yes, it is working as expected. But if you want to see the status of the circuit breaker, one way of seeing the status of the circuit breaker and the error messages is by using the actuator endpoints that are available for circuit breakers. So circuit breakers or circuit breaker event, you can directly look at the endpoints like this. Yeah, this is one way of doing it. Another way of doing it is you can use the appropriate dashboarding, right? Now, of course, there are many dashboarding options available. In our training, we will be using one dashboarding option called Prometheus. Yeah. So let me talk about Prometheus. No change in the app. Actually, in the app, I had already added the Prometheus dependency. You remember? Yes, right. If I just go to pom.xml, apart from circuit breaker, Prometheus dependency also is added. Plus Prometheus will depend on actuator, that also is anyway added. Yeah. So we will come back to it later. Now let's discuss about the Prometheus. Yeah. Please remember, since Histrix is no more supported by Spring Boot, Histrix dashboard also is not supported. So you will have to depend on other monitoring tools or other dashboarding tools. So we will be using Prometheus as our dashboarding or monitoring option. Of course, you can use any other tool also. If you guys are comfortable with New Relic or you are comfortable with Grafana monitoring option all that also you can configure and use. But during our training, we will be following one recommended monitoring option called as Prometheus. So Prometheus is a is a monitoring tool. First, you have to download and install Prometheus on your machines. So you can search for Prometheus, for example. Prometheus dashboard. Just go to the, okay, Prometheus website first. Yeah. So you can see here, Prometheus is an open source event monitoring software for high volume distributed applications. So it features real-time metrics and alerting, and it also supports a lot of querying and stuff like that. So this is the Prometheus dashboard that we will have to install. So you can go to the Prometheus website. Okay. So Prometheus, and from here you can download. Yeah. So Prometheus, and how do you set it up? Okay. How do you visualize? All these are available. So from here you can download it and start using it. Yeah. Or 1 minute. So this is open source. So you will have downloading options. So you can see here. Okay. I'll just copy this in your chat window, please. So from here you can download. For example, please remember that in our case, if you are planning to download and set up Prometheus on your Wipro laptop, please raise a appropriate helpline call with the helpline.wipro.com. And from there, you give them the details of whichever they have to download for you. For example, in my case, if I'm using Windows as my operating system, this is the zip file that I will need. And once I get the zip file and unzip, I will have the appropriate exes available in this. And I can use that to unzip it. Yeah. So this will be the zip file that you will require. So provide these details to the helpline team. Seek their help to download, make a request and seek their help to download the zip file. And once you download the zip file, you can unzip it. For example, in my machine, on my E drive, yeah, on my E drive under softwares, I have created one folder called Prometheus software. And under Prometheus software, that whatever zip file was given to me, right? I have unzipped it. When I've unzipped it, you can see that I will get this folder called Prometheus. Sorry, this is Prometheus 2.28. This is the zip file that you will get. Okay, from whichever, right? In my case, I have downloaded a little older one some weeks back, which is 2.28. The latest one at present is 2.36. So whichever is the latest, you can download. And once I've unzipped it, this is the folder. This is the main installation folder. And inside the main installation folder, can you all see that there are some folders and files? Yep. We will be working with two things. One is we will be using this prometheus.exe to start Prometheus. This is the exe file which can be used to start Prometheus. But before I start Prometheus, if I have to configure Prometheus, for example, Prometheus as a dashboard should start receiving the event stream of data from our microservice, right? So we will have to configure it and we will have to supply the microservice URL from where the Prometheus can get the data. All that we will be configuring in the YML file. I'll show it to you, don't worry. But once you get the zip file, unzip it in your installation folder, you will have the exe file which we will be using. But before starting Prometheus using the exe file, we will have to configure the Prometheus by using the YML file. Yeah. So I'll show you how you can do that. Yeah. So if you want to use Prometheus, so assume you have downloaded the software and you have installed and everything is available. What are the steps that you should follow to set up Prometheus for your microservice? So in our case, we are working with this the cafe review microservice, right? So first and foremost step is we should add the Prometheus dependency. So have we added the Prometheus dependency in our case? Yes, right. But these are the broader steps. Anyway, we will elaborate on each of the steps in the next few slides. Yeah. One is we have to add the Prometheus dependency. Second thing is, please remember Prometheus also requires actuator to collect the metrics. So ensure that you have added actuator dependencies also and you have exposed all the endpoints. Do you think this also has been done in our current app? Yes, right? Now, once you have made these two, the above two steps would have added additional circuit breaker and Prometheus endpoints under our actuator base path. Did we analyze that? Did you see that additional circuit breaker endpoints and Prometheus endpoints also was there under the actuator endpoint? Yes, right. Now, the circuit breaker actuator endpoints can be used to review the circuit breaker details and the status. Yeah. And the Prometheus actuator endpoint could be supplied. Look at the last one. The Prometheus actuator endpoint could be supplied to the Prometheus software through its configuration file, which will be prometheus.yml, so that it could stream the events and instrumentation data into the dashboard. So this is one last thing that is left out. Yeah, I'll show you how you can do that. Meanwhile, look at step number 1. First, we should add the Prometheus dependency. Yeah, so you can see that group ID is IO micrometer and artifact ID is micrometer registry Prometheus. Yeah, and the scope has been set as runtime. So during runtime of my app, this Prometheus dependency will be provided. So this is step number 1. And step number 2, because Prometheus depends on actuator to collect the metrics, ensure that you have added the actuator dependency also. So this is the actuator dependency. Yeah. Plus, to expose all the endpoints, we know that in the latest versions of Spring Boot, by default, when you enable actuator, what is the only endpoint that is available under the main base URL called actuator? Correct, only health. But you need all the other endpoints also, right? Circuit breaker related endpoints, Prometheus related endpoints. So in your YML file or in your application.properties file, use management endpoints web exposure include all of them. And there's also one more option called health. Okay. Management endpoints health, show details. I've set it as always so that additional health details, if it wants to show, it can show. So I'm just setting show details to always. Yeah, that's it. These are the two initial steps that I have to follow. Yeah, and I've already demonstrated that. In our example, you can see Prometheus dashboard dependency has already been added in line number 45 to 49. Is that right, guys? Yes. And Prometheus is dependent on actuator. So that also has been added. Yeah. And in our application.yml also, management endpoints web exposure include, I've included all, plus health also show details, I've said always. Yeah. So that's what I've done already. And this I've already demonstrated. The previous steps that you would have added additional circuit breaker and Prometheus endpoint under your actuator base path. So under actuator, you will see circuit breaker related endpoints, right? So you can see actuator circuit breakers followed by a name. Yeah. Then actuator circuit breaker events. This is circuit breaker events. This is the circuit breaker events. Prometheus also, you have actuator / Prometheus. All these are important endpoints. Yeah. Now, if you are planning to use, now see, for example, if you wanted to just see the names of your circuit breaker, you could have used actuator / circuit breaker. It would have given you some names. So this is one sample. In this program, in some program, they have set up two circuit breakers. So you will be able to see that two circuit breakers are shown here. Yeah. And for each of the circuit breaker, okay, look at this. What is the status of the to-do circuit breaker, guys? What is the status? Success, right? So what do you think will be the status of the circuit breaker? Closed or opened? Closed or opened? Closed. When everything is operating normally, it will be closed, right? So success means it will be closed. Yeah. But look at the circuit breaker called country circuit breaker. What is the status of that? Error, right? There is some kind of error and hence there is some error here and the status is error means it is opened, right? So such details you will be able to see under the circuit breaker events. Yeah. Now, as I told you, if you want to use Prometheus software installed on your machine, you need to supply the Prometheus endpoint details to your, the actuator endpoint details of your Prometheus endpoint to your Prometheus software. So, see, this is your app, right? This is your app. Your app has this endpoint called actuator / Prometheus. This is the endpoint that you have to pass to the Prometheus software. So that in Prometheus software, we will be able to use the Prometheus dashboard and we can get all the data in the dashboard and we'll be able to see it. Yeah. But for doing this, yeah, we have to first configure our Prometheus YML file with the required details. And after that, so first we have to configure this in the YML. Then using prometheus.exe, we can run the Prometheus. Yeah. So what we'll do is we'll do one thing. This is my path for my Prometheus, right? So I have already raised the request with the helpline team. I don't have any special privileges. I am one employee just like you. I have also raised a request for the software. And once I got the Prometheus software, I have as a zip, I've unzipped it here. Now you can see, are all of you able to see in my installation folder for Prometheus? Can you all see this YML file? Yes, right? Now you have to open the YML file and I will show you where you have to make the entry. Yeah. But before that, let us recheck. In our system, where is our microservice running? Yeah. It is running on the local host and it is listening on port 55532. Are you able to make out? Yeah. 55532 is the port on which it is running. Plus, what is the endpoint for Prometheus? Yeah. What is the endpoint for Prometheus? Actuator / Prometheus, right? So we will require this entire endpoint. Let me copy it. So it is running. This is my host. Okay. And this is the endpoint for Prometheus, right? First have this ready. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to open the YML file. Yeah. I can open it in any editor. So I'm opening it in a Notepad++. So you can see, don't worry about all these. Just go to the end. In the end, under static configs, certain steps are there, right? So from line number 28 onwards, I want you to have a look. Don't worry about rest of it. Yeah, just look at the entire thing. Okay, just look at from line number maybe 23 onwards. Yeah, line number 23 onwards. Go through it, then I'll explain. So for actually Prometheus internally runs lot of tasks. These tasks are basically called as a job. So whenever you want to add a new task, you have to add a new job entry. So that is what I have done from line number 23 onwards. So using this property called job name, I have given the job name as Prometheus. Yeah. And look at some static configurations. By default, Prometheus runs, Prometheus dashboard, as soon as you run, automatically it will run on localhost and listen on port 9090. So are you able to make out under the static configs in line number 29, what is the Prometheus target I've given? Where does your Prometheus dashboard run? Localhost 9090. So by using the property called targets, I've given it runs on localhost 9090. Then again here, this is the main Prometheus. But Prometheus should be able to take up some jobs and it has to do it, right? So for that, you can give again a job name. So give a job name. It's after all a string. In my case, I've given it a Spring Resilience 4J. And remember, Prometheus as a monitoring tool or as dashboarding tool, it cannot do magic. You have to supply the event stream data, which will supply the metrics to your Prometheus, and Prometheus will show the data in a dashboarding format. So in line number 31, look at what I'm doing. Using the metrics path property, I'm giving the path of the path of your app, which will supply the metrics to your Prometheus. So in our case, what is that? This one, right? Actuator / Prometheus. Yeah. So that is what I'm giving. See, what is the metrics path? Where can your Prometheus get the details from? The detail is /actuator / Prometheus. Yeah. One more, there are few properties like scrape interval, 3 seconds. That means every 3 seconds, it will keep checking the status of your circuit breaker and accordingly, it will keep updating the dashboard. Yeah. And the last one under static configs is, look at the target that I'm giving. See here, this is the server target, which is your Prometheus. Yeah. So this is your server target where Prometheus is running. And this entire thing is your client target, which is supplying data to Prometheus, right? Can you guess what am I giving in the last line? 34 line number, where I'm saying targets, I'm giving something, right? What is this URL here? This is my microservice, right? This is my service URL. So where is my service URL running? It is running on localhost 55532. Yeah. So of course, it has Prometheus has lot of ways of getting the details automatically. Okay, you need not hard code it, but in our case, because we have only one microservice running, I'm just providing the details of localhost plus the port number on which it is running. So that's all I have to give in my YML file. Are you all with me, guys? Yeah. Plus, please be a little careful with the YML file. Remember, I told you YML files are hierarchical in nature. They expect you to provide the details in a strict format, right? So main property will start, then the next property should have 2 spaces, all that, right? So be a little careful of how you have typed this. Yeah, I will share one sample YML file with you guys. Yeah, this YML file as sample I will share in MS Team so that you will get a fair idea whenever you guys are setting it up. So once this is ready, now we can run our Prometheus. Yeah. So once you have made the relevant required configurations ready in your YML file, now you will run your Prometheus. How? So where is my Prometheus? Prometheus is in this folder, right? So I will open up a command prompt. In the command prompt, I will go to the Prometheus website. Can you see, sorry, Prometheus folder, installation folder. Are you able to make out? I'm sitting under my Prometheus folder. If I do a dir, all these files are there, right? Now we have already updated the prometheus.yml with the relevant data. Now you can start your exe. So you can see prometheus.exe is what we need to start. So you can say prometheus.exe and press enter. Yeah. Let's see if everything goes on fine, it should be able to start. So you can see it has started. Yeah. You can see on top, it started listening for connections on port 9090. Are you able to make out? Yeah. Address 0.0.0.0. That means localhost 9090. It's able to run. It's already running. And now it is ready to, see, server is ready to receive the web requests. Is that okay, guys? All of you? Yeah. And according to the YML, it's already able to pick up the data. Yeah. Now, once this is dead, don't come out. Just minimize it. Let us access the Prometheus dashboard. Yeah. So Prometheus dashboard is available on 9090, right? So access localhost 9090. Are you able to see the Prometheus dashboard, all of you? Yes, right. Now here, if you just click on this world icon, yeah, there will be a metrics explorer that it will show you. There are a lot of metrics that your Prometheus can monitor and show you the data. Yeah. So let us just scroll down. There are many things related to operating system, related to your app and stuff like that. See, many things are there. Are you able to make out? Yeah. There are Prometheus related also that are there, right? Many such metrics are available. Look at that. Yeah. Now, what I want to see is, I want to see resilience 4J circuit breaker related details, isn't it, guys? Yeah. So what I'm going to do is, either you can just click on it and go to the resilience 4J related properties. Under resilience 4J related properties, there are many properties that you can view, like resilience circuit breaker buffered calls, resilience circuit breaker calls seconds count, failure rate. You want to look at the status of the circuit breaker, all that you can see. For example, here, assume I want to see resilience for the circuit breaker state. Yeah. When I use the circuit breaker, I choose this matrix and I click on this button called execute. Now, can you see this, guys? Yeah. How many circuit breakers are available? Yeah. What is the name? Same. Get review circuit breaker itself. Yeah. And what is the instance where it is running? What is the job? This is the YML name I have given. That's the job name. The name of this circuit breaker is get review circuit breaker. And what is the state of it? State of it is at present it is closed. Yeah. At present it is closed. Yeah. And initially when it started, it was closed. Then it got disabled. Yeah. Then force open, half open. Then it can collect only metrics. But now the status is open. That means there is something wrong with that, right? So for example, here, it's still not working. Yeah. My app is still not working. So obviously now if you see, yeah, if I execute this, the status of that should be still open, right? So I can say it is still open. Can you see this, guys? Yeah. And every 3 seconds, it will refresh. Okay. So accordingly, it will refresh every 3 seconds. So in case I've made large amount of calls here, assume, and in the Prometheus, I will refresh. Accordingly, it will show you. So it will take 3 seconds to update, and accordingly, it will show. Guys, are you all with me? Yeah. You can even see it in terms of the table. Here also there are few things. For example, you can even check depending on the date and time. Yeah. So for now, around 10:58, this has happened. Yeah. There is also a graph that you can see. Based on this, it will start creating a graph. Yeah. All this data based on this. Okay. It will start. Yeah. For example, you want to see this. Yeah. You can see. See, it has happened from 10:55 onwards. And if you take your cursor here, you will see. Look at that. What is the series? Yeah. All that it will depict on the chart. So it becomes easy for you to make out where it is, when did it happen, and all that. Yeah. You can also watch it in the table. Team, are you all with me? Prometheus itself is a huge database, dashboarding or monitoring tool altogether. Yeah. And if you want to know more about Prometheus, we have to know or we have to learn more about Prometheus. But that is not our idea. We are only going to use Prometheus as a monitoring option to monitor the status of our circuit breaker. So you can all as well see it in terms of the table or in terms of the graph. Yeah. I have used one property called resilience for the circuit breaker state. That is why it is showing me the state as open and closed. Yeah. But if you want more details, you can have other properties. Resilience 4J related, there are other properties also that you can use, right? So there are many properties here. Whenever you have time, you can go through them. All these are resilient related. Resilience 4J related. Team, are you all with me, please? That's it. Okay. And guys, please note, using Prometheus is not mandatory. Yeah, using Prometheus is not mandatory because the same thing we were able to see even in the directly from actuator also we were able to see, right? Yeah. Here in the actuator also, if you want to see the circuit breaker events, here also you could see the same details. See the same details. But again, as I told you, depending on whether you want to use the dashboard or not, the dashboard might show you the output quite clearly. Okay, then you can use a dashboard. So don't think that dashboard is mandatory, but in case you have a dashboard, it's a good idea. Yeah. And Prometheus also, as I told you, if you're setting up things on your personal laptop, you can easily download and use it. But if you're setting it up in Wipro laptops like how I have done, please raise an appropriate helpline call for this software. Make a software requisition and then the team can help you with downloading and using it. Is that okay, guys? Yeah. So that's what we have done in this chapter. Yeah. So same thing, right? So I can pick up a property and I can click on execute. This clicking on this world icon will give you Metrics Explorer, where it will list all the metrics that are available, and you can pick up your circuit breaker resilience 4J related metrics, and from there you will be able to see the details. All this you can do. Yeah. So just to summarize whatever we have done till now, we have understood how software circuit breaker can help us protect against cascading failure. We have also used Spring Cloud Netflix. We also mentioned about Spring Cloud Netflix Hystrix as a circuit breaker option, which also provides a easy to monitor dashboard called as Hystrix dashboard. But unfortunately, Hystrix and Hystrix dashboard is not supported in Spring Boot 2.4.m1 onwards. So alternative to Hystrix is Spring Cloud Circuit Breaker with Resilience 4J. So we looked at the steps that are involved to add the resilience 4J dependency, and how you have to use the circuit breaker to work with it. Plus, I just now showed you how you can use Prometheus as a monitoring or a dashboard option. Team, are you all with me? Yes. So this is what we have covered till now. Yeah. So with this, you know what? If you just go back to your agenda, can you make out that with this, our important topics are covered as per our agenda? Are you able to make out? Yes, right? But don't be very happy. Don't think that this is the end of microservices training. There are other advanced topics that we will be covering as well. Yeah. Starting today, at least the first 3 days, today, tomorrow, and day after, are you aware that only the morning session, there is a training plan for you guys? Do you have anything in the afternoon? Nothing, right? So as I already mentioned on Friday, we will be sharing additional topics on microservices, which you have to cover as a self-learning module. So today also I will be providing you the topics that you have to complete as a self-learning module. And tomorrow, as soon as we come in, there will be quiz on those topics. I will want to understand how well you have understood those topics. And I will also share the relevant recordings, relevant programs, all that might be required for you to learn a concept well. All those things, I will share it in the MS Teams. Is that okay, guys? So with this, we have completed all these modules. But before we continue with the next plan for today, is this the right time for us to take a break? Yes, right? And please note, as soon as we come back from break, I would want to check with you your status on the microservices assessment management topic, how you have implemented your solution. I would want a couple of demos from maybe 2 or 3 of you, and then we can move on to our actual discussion. Okay. So people who are volunteering to demonstrate, just keep your apps ready so that you can demonstrate not only to me, but for your to your other colleagues also. Okay. So now we will take a break and we'll come back. Welcome back. Before the break, we have completed our discussions on the circuit breaker with resilience 4J. And we have also discussed about the monitoring option that is available through Prometheus, right? So the main discussions on the first 3 topics or the main topics are completed. But before we move on to certain advanced topics, and I also guide you through what modules you will have to complete in the afternoon and stuff like that. Remember, we were expected to work on the microservices use case, which was assessment management, right? And I had asked all of you to be kind of ready for the first level of the assessment management app, where you will be expected to create the relevant microservices. Plus, I wanted you to set up the Eureka server, right? As the first part of it. Yeah. So any volunteers who have done this already, and you can demonstrate your app with all of us? Any volunteers who have completed this activity, please? I don't see any responses. Even no is a response. Yeah. Okay, great. Ankit, can you go ahead, and I've enabled participants to unmute themselves and even share. Can you please unmute yourself and share your screen and take us through how you have approached it, Ankit?
Sure, ma'am.
Yeah.
It's visible.
Yes, it is. Yeah.
Okay, so like I have three service in my app, like admin service, employee, and third one is
Mm.
registration, right?
Uh-huh.
So and fourth one is like Eureka server for register
Uh-huh.
all the services within that. So
Okay, fine.
like first of all, like I have employee service. So in which I have like a URL that I can add a technical assessment.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and the second one is behavioral. So I have captured like a user ID assessment and date in both of URL, right? And
Okay.
third URL is like to expose all the submitted assessment to a
Mm-hmm.
list. So for
Okay.
managing a list, I have created a service in which yeah, so I use HashMap in to store our data. So in which
Mm.
integer is user ID and assessment detail as a value. Okay, so like
Okay.
we can list all the employee uh,
Mm-hmm.
submitted assessment. Second service is I have like admin service,
Mm.
like in which I use discovery client to get the get the list from the employee service. So here
Mm.
I use like discovery client and
Mm.
use instance name here. So I get a
Mm.
service like instance list and get a zero instance and like
Okay. So admin is talking to employee service, is it?
uh, right. Admin is
Okay.
getting all the employee list from the employee service.
Uh-huh.
So
Okay. Mm.
that's all it's doing. And third
Okay.
one is
Mm.
like I have registration service.
Mm.
So like in which like I have URL like I have login page in it, like
Mm.
I capture user ID, password, and role, and
Mm.
I have like static users
Mm.
in a like uh, in a list of users. So I have
Mm.
created in my main application.
Mm. Mm. Okay.
Okay,
So
so like
here, huh. Mm.
yeah, I have captured user ID, password, and role, and filter out the user ID, role, and password.
Mm.
So I like here I am getting like a user. So if
Okay.
the user is user role is employee, so I have written an employee template. Otherwise,
Mm.
I have
Mm.
written a admin template. Or if
Mm.
user is not present, so I am giving a error page to it.
Mm. Mm.
Okay,
Mm.
and
Looks good.
I have
Mm.
a view all endpoint, uh, which is like used to like in my admin template, I have used view all API to get
Mm.
all
Mm.
employee list. So
Mm.
in my employee view all endpoint, I have used again like admin service here to
Mm.
get all
Okay.
users
But
from
this
the
time you have
service.
used load balancer client, is it?
Right here, but
Okay.
I am using like a load balancer client.
Mm. Mm.
So and a REST template to get the object from the
Okay.
URL.
Okay.
So
That's
and
good. Mm.
I have like a four endpoint here, like for technical, like I have written a technical view, and for
Mm.
behavioral, I have written behavioral assessment view.
Mm. Mm.
Also, I am trying to like post a mapping, but that's not working right now.
Mm.
So I can demonstrate my
Yes.
service.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Okay, so first of all, I have registered all the service, admin service, employee service, and registration service, right?
Mm.
So for employee service, like I need to uh, create an employee. Okay, like my user ID is one, and I submitted a assessment on Java on date like something. Okay, so like I have one employee here. So here, like I can see all employee list, right?
Got it.
Okay. Okay, and second one is employee service, which is used to get all the employee list from the employee service. I have all endpoint same here. So like it's data coming from employee service,
Okay.
and third one is like registration service. So in which have like I have a user ID 1234, one for employee and three for admin. So
Okay.
basically a user ID one, password is password one, and employee role is employee.
Okay.
So like here I can see like a register for technical assessment and register for behavior, but this URL is not working right now.
Okay.
Because,
So
like
you have to work. You have to work on that. Is it?
yeah,
Post you have to do, right?
yeah, post
Okay.
is not right. And if like I have admin users, so if wait, 3. Okay, so if a user login as a admin, so PO registration link is there, so it will get employee detail from the like admin service, and admin service internally use employee service to get employee list.
Yeah, looks good. Looks good. So you have to implement the employees functionality, right? How
Yeah,
an employee can register for a technical assessment and for a
yes,
behavioral assessment. Okay, fine.
yes,
And not to complicate things, you have used a hash map or a map variety as your storage, right?
right.
Okay, looks good, Ankit. Yeah, and you have anyway also used load balancer client also. Today
Yes,
you
yes,
have anyway learned circuit breaker, right? Now,
yes, yes,
depending
yeah.
on that, you can anytime add whichever methods are important. You can even add circuit breaker.
Yes, yes. Further, more like I have had like open fees client and circuit breaker in our app.
Correct. You do that. And
Yes,
again, what you can do is like how I was doing, Ankit. Once one part is working fine, okay, leave that and entire same copy you take and you can implement the rest of it.
okay, okay.
That also you can do. However you want, you are comfortable, you do it.
Yes, yes.
Great, good work, Ankit. Yeah. Anybody else who has completed? Even if it is 100% not working, at least I want to see how you guys have approached, what and all microservices you have, at least the basic things have you got up and running. I want to know. Yeah.
Hi
Anybody else?
Savita.
Yes,
Hi
please.
Savita. Vijay Kumar Mandal here.
Vijay.
Good morning.
Yes, Vijay. Good morning.
Yeah, actually I've implemented it, but like communicating between two microservices, I'm facing the issue.
What are you
So
using? Discovery client are you using?
yeah, yes, I'm using the discovery client.
Sure, show it us.
Like this microservices.
Vijay, we are not able to see your screen as yet. Yeah.
Running like admin management employee.
Vijay, yeah, Vijay, wait. Yeah, we are not able to hear you clearly. We are not able to see your screen also, Vijay.
Yes. Yes.
Vijay, are you able to hear us? Yeah.
So,
We are not able to, no, we are not able to see your screen. We are
I
not,
can hear
your voice also is not very clear.
Yes. Actually, I'm facing little bit internet issue today. Can I share it again?
Yes, yes, go ahead, share it.
My screen visible?
No, not yet. Not yet visible, Vijay. Now it is visible.
Okay. So, like,
No, Vijay, your voice is very.
yes, one is
No,
one is
Vijay.
two microservices. One is a manager, one is management, another.
Vijay, sorry, Vijay, we are not able to voice correctly. We are not able to. Okay, we are not able to hear you clearly. Your voice is breaking. Okay, so is it okay that because you have internet issues, is it okay that you uh, share your share this probably tomorrow? Shall we have a look?
Yeah, yes, sure.
We are
Sure,
unable
sure.
to see your screen, not this. Okay, great. I don't want you guys to share your solutions in the MS team, okay? Because I want each individual to do it. Yeah, if somebody shares, we will start copying from there. So let us not share anything on the MS team right now. Yeah, we have at least I'm very happy that Ankit has created it and even Vijay has started with it. Yeah, of course he has some issues, but otherwise I can still see Vijay has done lot of job there. Yeah, apart from Ankit and Vijay, anybody else who has started to work on it, even if it is incomplete, it's okay, guys. I want to see how you have approached it. That's it.
Hello.
Hello, who's this?
Yeah, Shubhadeep here.
Shobhadeep.
Actually, today I'm not feeling well, so I'm not demonstrating it. I have joined from mobile, and
Okay.
so I will demonstrate it tomorrow. I
No problem.
already have started it. The
Hmm.
microservice part is
Hmm.
done.
Hmm.
Only the UI part is pending.
Okay.
And for the UI part, I'm taking one extra thing as a I mean service gateway because I'm keeping the entire UI part in a different like Spring Boot application, not taking the same thing.
Sure, sure, sure. Fine, fine. That should be okay. Yeah. Sure,
I'll
Shobhadeep.
be
Tomorrow
demonstrating
we
it
can.
tomorrow. Yes.
Yeah. We'll do that. Yeah. So probably tomorrow, if time permits, yours and Vijay's, we can have a look tomorrow. Anybody else apart from Ankit, Vijay, and Shubhadeep? Anybody else have started? If you have not started, it's high time that you start, please. Okay, if you have not started, it's high time that you start. Yeah, we have already done so many things. Yeah.
Hello, hi Sarita.
Hi, who's this?
Yeah, I'm Yogesh Gaikwad.
Hi, Yogesh.
Yeah, already I started, but due to my laptop issue, it's not
Hmm.
working. So I have
Hmm.
joined with my personal laptop now.
Okay,
I
fine.
will, I will do
Hmm.
with my personal laptop. Once it complete,
Sure.
I will.
Once you complete, you can submit it to us for review.
Yeah, yes, yes. Okay,
Okay. Good,
thank you.
good. Okay. Thanks, guys. Thanks for your inputs. And I'm assuming that since I did not hear from others, I'm assuming that you guys have not started, please. It's high time, yeah, that you start. We will be looking forward for submissions from each one of you on microservices assessment management app. Yeah. Great. So, shall we move on to the advanced topics then? So we'll continue, please. Yeah. Sharing my screen. Is my screen visible, all of you? Yes. So starting today, we will also be discussing few other advanced topics that we could discuss under microservices. Yeah. As I told you, certain modules I will assign it as a e-learning. So in the afternoon, you guys have to complete the learning, and I will also share the relevant programs. You have to analyze the programs, and then you will have to complete that activity in the afternoon. Just because we are not having an instructor-led training in the afternoon, that does not mean that we can relax. I will give you appropriate tasks and you have to complete those tasks before you come in for the morning session. Is that okay, all of you? Yeah. So, of course, certain modules we will also be covering in as a trainer led. So today, tomorrow and day after in the morning, I will be anyway there. I will take you through some of the modules. But certain modules, you will have to do it on your own in the afternoon session. Yeah. Now, have a look. Starting with our little advanced topics. The first advanced topic that I will be dealing with now in whatever time we have is a concept or is a module on distributed log tracing with Sleuth and Zipkin. Now, guys, I'm sure like all of us are aware of logs, right? So whenever you create an app, you might want to log messages either to the logger or maybe to the standard input device. Logging some important debugging messages, some important information messages so that we can know what's happening in the app when it runs, isn't it? Yeah. So for individual apps, logging is much easier because there's only one app and all the log messages will have to go to the console. And when we look at the console, we would be able to understand what's happening within your app. Yeah. But with microservices, it is slightly different, isn't it? Because in a microservices based app, you will not have only one app, right? You will have multiple apps. And these multiple apps might have to communicate with each other also, right? Now in our apps also, Cafe Info is talking to Cafe Review. Yeah, very similar to that when you guys have designed. In your case also, registration microservice is talking to employee microservice, right? Or registration is talking to admin microservice. Maybe in Shubhadeep's case, he is also creating a UI microservice. So the UI microservice might be talking to the other microservice for the functionality, right? So when in a microservice based setup, when there are communications that are or interactions that are happening on multiple microservices, how do you capture or how do you trace this distributed log? And in case you also want to monitor it through a monitoring tool, what can you use? That is what we will be dealing with. So in this chapter, I will take you through what do you mean by distributed log tracing. For doing or for enabling distributed log tracing, we will be using a product called Sleuth. Plus, as a monitoring tool or as a dashboarding tool, which can help us to monitor this distributed tracing, there is another product available called Zipkin. So we will look at Zipkin as well. Yeah. So this is what we will be dealing with as our next chapter. Yeah. Let me first introduce you to the objectives. Yeah. First and foremost, we will understand what is the need of log tracing. Yeah, roughly I have told you what might be the need, but in general, what is the need for log tracing? Let's have a look. Then I will introduce you to two products from Spring Cloud called as Spring Cloud Sleuth and Zipkin. So I will introduce you to both of them and what role is played by Spring Cloud Sleuth, what role is played by Zipkin. We will try to understand that. Then once we have understood that, we will start implementing Sleuth and Zipkin based microservices. So here also, to understand everything better, in phase 1, we will set up regular microservices. Yeah. See, the discussion of cafe info and cafe review for time being is completed. Yeah. I will be using different programs for these modules. So in phase 1, what we'll be doing is we will be setting up regular non-sleuth and non-zipkin microservices. So we will just create very simple microservices, but in that microservice, we will not be using sleuth also, we will not be using zipkin also. Yeah, that is phase 1. Slowly we will take that same app and we will see how you can enable sleuth in your microservice. And after enabling sleuth in your microservice, we will analyze the logs again and we will try to understand how is it different. Compared to a regular microservice and a microservice with sleuth enabled, how does the log messages differ? Are there any extra details that comes up because you have enabled sleuth? We will try to talk about that. Yeah. And in the phase 3, we will be downloading and executing Zipkin. Okay. We will be, there's a jar file. So we'll just download that jar file. And once I execute, it will open up a dashboard. Yeah. And once that is up and running, what we will do is we will take our same microservice, which is now enabled with Sleuth. We will also enable it with Zipkin. And then finally, we will analyze the logs in a Zipkin dashboard. So these are the 4 phases in which we will be implementing our Sleuth and Zipkin based microservices. Is that okay, guys? So first and foremost, before we talk about the implementation, we will look at the need of log tracing. Yeah. So as we said, if you are designing and implementing your applications, which is based on the microservices architecture, obviously you might end up in having many microservices, right? And these microservices might have to interact with each other, isn't it? So in our demo for this chapter, we will be using a very simple example. We will be working with 4 microservices. So I'm just giving them very simple names: microservice 1, 2, 3, and 4. Yeah. So in microservice 1, you might have a scenario where microservice 1 is talking to microservice 2. Microservice 2 is interacting with microservice 3. Microservice 3 is interacting with microservice 4. Microservice 4 is the actual microservice which is generating the response. Then the response is given to microservice 3. From 3 it comes to 2. From 2, finally microservice 1 is able to display the data. Yeah. So assume for easy understanding we take such interaction. In such interactions, in case any exceptions or error occur, how do we pinpoint to which microservice that errors and exceptions occurred? Yeah. If I am not able to get the output, did the error or exception occur at microservice 4? Or did it occur at microservice 3? Or did it occur at microservice 2? How do I pinpoint so that appropriately we can check the code? Yeah. Regular applications will have their own logs, but microservice based app involves communication between multiple microservices. In that case, using regular logging mechanism for each service will have its own, it's not possible because every service will have its own log. Yeah. And so here we might have to correlate the logs for a particular request chain. So this entire thing is a request chain, right? So we might have to correlate these logs and then we might have to make sense out of it. Yeah. So how can you do all this? This is the reason why a log tracing option might be needed. Yeah. So talking a little about the solution that we'll be using. For log tracing, we will be using two products. Both of them are from Spring Cloud. One is Spring Cloud Sleuth, the other one is Zipkin. Spring Cloud Sleuth is basically going to help us in generating a trace ID or a token. Sleuth will generate and it will attach a token. The token internally will contain trace ID, span ID. All these it will attach it to the log so that these can be used to look at the details directly in your console, or these details you can further feed it to the monitoring tools like Zipkin or Elk so that the data can be stored and you can analyze it. So first product that I will use is Spring Cloud Sleuth. Please note, Sleuth is what will generate the the token. The token will consist of something called trace ID, span ID, etc. I will elaborate on that in the next few slides. Don't worry. Okay? Now, we can also use Zipkin. Zipkin is a distributed tracing system. It's like a small dashboard, It helps us to gather timing data that is needed to your troubleshoot your latency problems in your architectures. Zipkin provides us features through which it will collect the data from Sleuth, and then it will depict the data in a graphical format so that me and you can use Zipkin as a monitoring tool to look up to that data. That is what we are going to use. Yeah. So Spring Cloud Sleuth, and we are going to use Zipkin. Yeah. So as we said, now that we have understood what is log tracing and why we might need log tracing, we are now getting into the implementation part of Sleuth and Zipkin based microservices. Yeah. In the first phase, if you recollect, we will be setting up regular non-Sleuth, non-Zipkin microservices, right? So how am I going to set it up? Just give me a minute. Let me just check how I have. One minute, please. Yeah. Okay. So I think I have implemented all the things in the microservices apps till now. These will be the 4 apps that I'll be using. Microservice 1, microservice 2, microservice 3, and microservice 4. Can you all see this? Yeah. These are the 4 apps that I'll be using for my chapter on log tracing. Yeah. So initially what we will do is, we will create very simple microservices that interact with each other. So this is the plan. We all know that every microservice is a Spring Boot app, right? So phase 1, we will create a Spring Boot app based microservice which interact with each other. This is the plan. I think I've already told you. There'll be 4 microservices: microservice 1, microservice 2, microservice 3, and microservice 4. Once they're all ready, actually the end user can access just to test it. We will test one endpoint available in microservice 1, which is /microservice 1. But when we make a call to microservice 1, in microservice 1, it is making a call to microservice 2 and calling this microservice 2 endpoint. In turn, microservice 2 is making a call to microservice 3 endpoint, and microservice 3 endpoint is making a call to microservice 4. Finally, microservice 4 is generating the actual response, and look at this. Response is given back to microservice 3. Then the response is given back to microservice 2. And finally, microservice 2 will give the response to microservice 1. And finally, the response will go back to the client. Yeah. So this is the entire request chain and the response chain that happens. Guys, are you all with me? Yeah. So initially, this is how our programs look. Yeah. That is phase 1, where we are not going to use any Sleuth or any Zipkin. Okay. So what we'll do is we will go back to our apps. I will import all these apps now. Yeah. Give me a minute. Just for keeping it easy, I'm not even using Eureka. Okay. So just to keep it easy. In case I'm using, I will get that back. 1 minute. Let me see. Okay, I have this, right? Microservice 1. Okay, let me call this first. Similarly, let me call the others. I have 4 microservices that I'll be using for this chapter. Just import all of them. Then it will be easy for us to analyze. Yeah. The last microservice, let us pull this up. Okay. So all of them are there. Now, as we said, our idea to build all these is initial phase 1. I am not planning to use Sleuth or Zipkin, right? So what I'll do is I will go to microservice 1. Let me go to the pom.xml file. Yeah. In case I have any dependency for Sleuth or Zipkin, I will remove that or I'll comment that for time being. Yeah. So you can see here, look at the pom.xml file, all of you. Initially, from line number 5 to line number 19, are they the same? Like all others? Yes, right? Let me scroll down. Are you all comfortable with the dependencies that you see on line number 22 to 24, which is the web dependency? Yes, right? Now what I'm going to do is, because in phase 1, I'm not planning to use any Sleuth or Zipkin, I will comment Sleuth or Zipkin related dependencies. Are you all with me? See, from line 26 to 38, I have commented it. Are you able to see that? Yes, right? Next, I have the regular test dependency. Let that be there. And maybe, see, at present, I don't want cloud. But anyway, this dependency management is available. And of course, Spring Boot Maven plugin. Is that okay, all of you? Yes. Okay, so this is pom.xml. And just by looking at the POM itself, can you tell me whether this program will behave as a Eureka client? Are we using any discovery, registry, and service here? No, right? Just to keep it simple. But you know how you can do that, right? Yeah. Just to keep it simple, I'm not using any Eureka here. Okay. Now, once this is ready, let's look at the code. I've kept it very simple. Meanwhile, let's look at application.properties. Yeah. Okay. Look at this, all of you. Are you all comfortable with line number 1 and line number 2? Yeah, I'm using application.properties. So you can see that microservice 1 is running on port 8091 and I've just given a Spring application name as microservice 1. Okay. So that's all I've done. Now, let me show you the code. Yeah. So this is my microservice app. Don't worry about the rest of the code. Okay. Don't worry about the rest of the code. First, have a look at this. Yeah. From line number 10 to line number 21, are you all comfortable with this? Right? Nothing great. It's the regular microservice app. Yeah. So using Spring application run, and I also have REST template. Yeah. So this is my app. Next, I only have one controller just to keep it simple. Yeah. Have a look at this, please. Yeah. Go through the code and then we'll talk about it. Yeah. So you can see that this main class, sorry, the controller class called microservice one controller is annotated with REST controller, right? So the moment you see it's annotated with REST controller, I'm sure you should be able to get a hint that whatever responses or output that comes in, that will be displayed as data. Isn't it, guys? Yes, right? Now, I want you to look at what I'm doing here. First, I'm auto wiring for an object of type REST template in line number 70. Yeah. Plus, you can see here that I've already imported the logger and the logger factory and other details here. Now, in line number 19, using the logger factory's method called getLogger, I am trying to get a logger for this particular class. So this .get class will pass the class name. So this will give me the logger for this particular class. That logger, I'm storing it in an object of type, of name log, which is of type logger. Are you all comfortable with line number 19? Yes. Now, look at this. In this controller class, I am supporting only one get method called as method one. And you can see this method will be called when I make an access to /microservice1. And inside this method one, what am I doing? I am first logging a message. So using the logger, log.info, I am logging an information saying I'm inside method one. And this is the base URL I'm maintaining. What is the base URL? Look at the base URL carefully. The URL is pointing to localhost 8092, which is the second microservice. And in the second microservice, I'm making a call to microservice 2. And look at this. Using the REST template, of course, you could have used the get for object method, all that. But this is another way. Using the REST template exchange method, I am passing the base URL. So that means I want to make, using REST template, I want to make a call to this. Which HTTP method do you want me to use? Get. Are you sending any data? No. And whatever response comes in, that response should be available as a string. So finally, when I make REST template and when we make a call, whatever is the response, that response will be available in the string variable. And again, using log.info, I am printing the response received here. And whatever is the response, that also gets returned. Are you all with me, guys? This is the basic program I'm showing you. And this is the code in microservice 1. Are you able to make out that from microservice 1, we are making a call to microservice 2 to get the response? Are you able to make out this? Yes, right? So that's it. So this microservice runs and it should run on port 8091, right? So this is one microservice which is ready. Yeah. Meanwhile, let me discuss other microservices. Again, microservice 2, same thing. Let me go to pom.xml. And in the pom.xml, everything is the same. Let me comment Zipkin and Sleuth. In the phase 1, I am not planning to use Zipkin or Sleuth, right? So let me comment these two lines. Rest of the things are the same, guys. How we discussed about microservice 1. Yeah. And I want you to quickly look at it. Microservice 2 runs on which port? /8092, and the application name is microservice 1. Microservice 2. Right now, let's look at the application class. Application class will remain the same. No changes there. Are you able to make out, guys? It is the same code like we discussed, right? Are you all comfortable with this code, all of you? Yes. And let's look at the controller class. Yeah. Sure, controller class also will be quite easy for you. Have a look. Quickly glance through. Are you able to make out that microservice 2 also using REST template? It is making a call to microservice 3 and making a call on microservice 3 endpoint. Yes, right? So see, exactly the same. Microservice 2 is making a call to microservice 3 to get the result and the response. Yeah. So this is microservice 2. Yeah. Exactly the same thing is microservice 3. Have a look. Form.xml. Let me go back and comment Zipkin and Sleuth. I don't want this. Yeah. So let me comment this off. Rest of the code is the same. Only regular web dependency. Yeah. Then let's have a look at our application.properties. Are you all fine with this? Microservice 3 is running on 8093 and the name of it is microservice 3. Yeah. Again, my main application class remains the same. Let's quickly show that to you. There it is. Is your application class the same? Yes, right? Now let's look at the controller class. Slight addition I have done. Same funda, but slight addition I have done. Just go through it and tell me what is the slight addition I have done here. Correct. Using the thread sleep method, I'm still doing the same thing. See, I'm keeping my base URL ready. Then here again, I'm making a call. But once the method or the control comes to method 1, using the thread.sleep, I am asking the thread to sleep for 1 second, which is 1000 milliseconds, right? Then it will continue with this. Yeah. Purposely, I just wanted to add a delay. So we are just adding a delay of 1 second by asking a thread to sleep for 1 second. And then I'm still doing the same job. Are you able to make out that the microservice 3 is talking to microservice 4? And then making the call and getting the response, everything is the same. Only addition is I've just added a sleep of 1 second. Yeah. Then finally, we will go to the microservice 4. Let's look at the pom.xml. We'll do the same thing here as well. Sleuth and Zipkin, I don't want, so I will comment it off. Yeah. Rest of the things will remain the same. Yeah. And now let's look at our application.properties. And this is how application.properties look. Is this okay, all of you? Okay, so I will, this is the same. And let's look at the main application class. Are you all fine with this application class? Same thing, right? Let's look at the controller class finally. Ideally, the controller class should generate the response, okay? Because this is the last microservice, this should just generate the response, yeah? Can you look at this and tell me what is this microservice 4 method on slash microservices 4? Yeah, return, what is it returning? Nothing great, right? It is just returning this string called happy learning. Yeah. So that's all it is doing. Yeah. So that's it. We are ready. Yeah. Now that we are ready, is it okay that we run these microservices? Yeah. We will run it in the reverse order. Yeah. Because microservice is dependent on 2, 2 is dependent on 3, 3 is dependent on 4. First, let's run 4. Yeah. So this is my main application. I will run it as Java app. And do I have anything else in this static thing? Nothing I have. Yeah. So main application. Yeah. Let me run. So let's watch the console. I'm just waiting till it starts. Yeah. Okay. So can you see this? Very simple, right? Immediately, no other things involved. So it's automatically started at port 8094. Yeah. Can you see this, guys? So this app has already started listening on port 8094. Yeah. Similarly, what we'll do is we will start microservice 3. It's the microservice app for 3. Let me run this. Microservice 3. So let's look at the console. Okay. Have a look at this. Microservice 3, has it started? Is it already up and running and listening on 8093? Yes, right? Let's do the same thing for microservice 2 and 1 also, please. Exactly the same way. So this is microservice 2. You can see that the microservice 2 also has started. Yeah. Last one, let's start microservice 1. And then finally, let us hit the endpoint. Yeah. Service 1. So let us run this. Let's look at the console. Okay. So you can see that this also has started. Yeah. Now, once all these 4 started, we are still in phase 1. If you recollect, in phase 1, we are supposed to create the Spring Boot based microservices that interact with each other as per the plan below, like this. Have we done that, guys? Is this ready? Yes, right? Now, once ready, run all the microservices. So that also have started. And now to test it on microservice 1 endpoint, just make a call on microservice 1 endpoint of this 8091, and then it should show us the correct response. Now, once I get the response, we will analyze the log messages to see individual log messages generated by your apps. Yeah. So we will go here. Once everything is up and running, yeah, once everything is up and running, we will access the first one, which is localhost. Okay, 1 minute, guys. Now we will access localhost 8091 and which endpoint? Microservice 1, right? Have a look. Once I access it, was this the expected output? Yes. So do you think that entire request flow has worked correctly? Yes, right? That is why you are able to see the final response, right? Now, if you analyze, if you just go to each of these applications, see, in microservice 1, if you look at the log, yeah, you can see that it is showing inside method 1. So it went to method 1. And then whatever response was received, that it is showing, right? Similarly, if you go to microservice 2, it is clearly showing that yes, the control went to method 2. And from method 2, once all the requests came, finally when the response was ready, the response is available here also, right? Similarly, if I look at microservice 3, it is inside method 3 correctly, and the response also has been received correctly here. Yeah. Finally, in microservice 4, I've just said inside method 4. I've not printed the response actually, but it says inside method 4. So it's very evident that everything has worked on fine. But if I have to look at the log messages, I have to look at individual log messages of every app. Isn't it, guys? And for example, if I see microservice 3, it is working fine now. But here, in case I don't see the data that was returned, then there is something wrong with either microservice 4, which is not returning the data, or there's something wrong with this, isn't it? So likewise, it becomes, I have to analyze and see whether everywhere things are working fine or not, right? So at present, things are working fine. Is that okay, guys? Yeah. But we are not too sure where, in case something goes wrong. Yeah. We are not too sure how to pinpoint which microservice there was a problem. I might have to look at all the log files to understand where exactly did it fail. Yeah. So here is where sleuth comes in. Yeah. As we said in phase 2, what are we going to do? Next, first that we have just looked at one program where sleuth and zipkin are not used. Yeah. And we were expected to look at each individual log messages to figure out how the entire request flow happened. In the second phase, we will look at how we can include sleuth. Yeah. So now we will be adding Spring Cloud Sleuth for all our microservices. What it will do is, once I add sleuth in our microservice, it will add a unique token to all the requests. So when requests happen, all the requests, it will add a unique token. But what is the token made up of? I will explain that in the next slide. Yeah. So Spring Cloud Sleuth is used to generate and attach the token. So the token will contain trace ID, span ID. So the trace ID and span ID gets added to the log, and so that further either you can manually look at it, or these log information you can send it to tools like Zipkin or Elk for further analysis. Yep. So look at the picture. Compare this picture where I was not using any sleuth or Zipkin, and compare this with how the scenario will look if I have enabled sleuth. Can you look at this and tell me, do you see anything extra here? Look at that picture and tell me, do you see anything extra? Correct. To the request and the response, can you see there is a token that is attached? So Spring Cloud Sleuth is used to basically generate and attach this token to your request and response. Yeah. And what does this token contain? What do you mean by trace ID? What do you mean by span ID? We will understand it. But for now, if you want to enable sleuth, first you have to add the dependency. And of course, if you are creating the app from scratch, in start.spring.io itself, you could have selected sleuth. Yeah. So, or if you already have an existing app, you can just add this dependency. Yeah. So if you just look at this, start.spring.io. Here you can add sleuth. See, sleuth is used for observability. Sleuth is used for distributed tracing via logs. And this is the product, Spring Cloud Sleuth. So you could have added this dependency. Yeah. Or if you want to manually add it, you just have to add this dependency in your pom.xml. See, group ID is org spring framework.cloud. Artifact ID is Spring Cloud Starter Sleuth. Yeah. So I'll just add this dependence. This is step number 1. Yeah. Then once you add it, remember we were saying that once you add, whenever a request flow happens, Sleuth will automatically generate a token, and the token gets attached to your log. But how does a Spring Cloud Sleuth token look? What are its important components? Here is an example. Yeah. So this is how the token might look. If you look at the token is made up of 4 parts. Sometimes the last part might not be there, but at least the first 3 parts would be there. Yeah. So what are these 4 parts? First is called as the application name. Then we have something called as a trace ID. Then we have something called as a span ID. And then we have something called as a flag, where you can have true or false. Yeah. But what are each one of them? Here is a small explanation. Just go through it. Try to understand what do you mean by app name, trace ID, span ID, and Zipkin export flag. Then we will talk. Yeah. Go through it, please. So I'm sure you got a little time just to go through it. So in my example, where we are involving 4 microservices, right? Now, if Sleuth was enabled, obviously Sleuth will generate a token, right? In the token, there will be 4 parts. At least first 3 parts will be there, right? Now, the first part is very easy, application name. So whatever is the application name I've given, it will just take that application name. So whatever application name you have defined in application.properties. Yeah. What is the second part? Second part is called as the trace ID. Now, guys, do you think the trace ID will be the same for all the microservices in that request? For one particular request, in my example, we are talking to 4 microservices. But when the token is generated, do you think the token ID will be the same for all the microservices? Yes. Yeah, this ID will be the same in all services that are for a given request. But what about span ID? Do you think span ID will be different for different services? Yes, it will be. So in our case, method 1 is sitting in microservice 1. That is talking to method 2, which is sitting in microservice 2. So span ID will be different. Guys, are you all with me? Yeah. If it is there in the same service if it is there, then it is the same span ID. But if it is going to a different method, different service, span ID will be different. Yeah. And of course, the last part is called as the Zipkin export flag. This is a flag. Either it will say true or false. This Boolean flag indicates whether the span should be exported to Zipkin or not. So using Zipkin is not mandatory. After you enable Sleuth, by default, the export flag is set to true. So that whenever token is generated, automatically that span related data is exported to Zipkin so that the flow can be monitored. But you can use some properties to temporarily make it as false, because in the second phase, we are still not planning to use Zipkin, right? We are only planning to use Sleuth. So what we can do is, for temporary in phase 2, we can keep the export flag as false. Is that okay, guys? Yeah, I will show you how you can do that. Yeah, this is the step 1. You have to add the dependency for Sleuth. This is our understanding. Sleuth will add the token. Token will be made up of app name, trace ID, and span ID. And optionally, it will also have the Zipkin export flag. And as I told you, initially, as soon as you add Sleuth, by default, it would export the span details to Zipkin. But initially, because you have still not set up Zipkin, if you want to turn it off, you can use the below property. I'm sure you can guess. Can you see that spring.zipkin.enabled? I've set it to false. Yeah, I've set it to false. So that Sleuth need not export it to Zipkin because Zipkin itself is still not up. Yeah. So this property you can set it to false. Yeah. Otherwise, if you don't do it, what happens is when you enable sleuth, it will try to find out where is Zipkin. If it's not able to find out Zipkin, then it will start throwing some messages and warnings in the console. I don't want that, right? I'm not planning to use Zipkin right now. So initially, I can set it to false. Yeah. Once that is done, one last step is left out in the phase 2. What is that? See, many times what happens is in huge enterprise applications, there will be large amount of data that will get generated in your app. Yeah. So the volume of data that is used or getting generated might be large. So in distributed tracing, the data volumes can be very high. So sampling should be important. So sampling can be important. Yeah. See, I want to know something went wrong, but that decision I can take and further decisions I can take even if you tell me about that wrong happening once or twice. It's not necessary that I have to wait for that large amount of data to be available and then feed it to the log analysis tool. All that need not happen, right? So what you can do is you can use something called as a sampler. Yeah. So let me read this out for you. In distributed tracing, the data volumes can be very high. So sampling can be important. The sampling determines what amount of data you want to send to a centralized log analysis tool like Zipkin. It's not necessary that all the data you have to send. Yeah. But if you want to send all the data to Zipkin or you want only to send a part of the data to Zipkin, you can decide. So if you are exporting span data to Zipkin, there is also a sampler called as always sampler that exports everything. And you also have another type of sampler called as percentage based sampler that exports fixed fraction of data from the span. So you can decide what kind of sampler do you want. Do you want to send all the data to Zipkin or do you want to send percentage based sample data to Zipkin? You can decide. Yeah. See, in our example, we are only working with 4 very small microservices and they are not generating too much of log data. So in that case, I can use something like this. Any guesses? Look at my bean entry that I will make in my main application class. What do you think this bean entry is doing? Which sampler am I using? There are 2 types of sampler, right? But in my program, which sampler am I planning to use? Yeah, always sampler, which is the default sampler. Always sample means all the data will be sent to Zipkin. That is what it will do. Okay. So using sampler, I'm choosing always underscore sampler. So this is one entry that you have to make. Yeah. So if you want to use sleuth, steps are 2. One is add the dependency like this in your pom.xml file. Sorry, steps are 3. Okay. Then if you don't want at present, you're not using Zipkin, right? So if you want to stop the export of the span to Zipkin, you can set this to false. Meanwhile, you make this bean entry, but this bean entry will be only valid if you are using Zipkin, right? But anyway, you can make this bean entry and keep it with you. Is that okay, guys? So these are the 3 steps that I have to perform. And once all the 3 steps are done for all the 4 microservices, again we will run them. But this time, because I've enabled sleuth, do you think the token will be generated by sleuth and it will be attached to my log message? Guys, now that I perform all these 3 steps to enable sleuth, and if I run my apps, do you think the token will be generated by sleuth? Yes. And it will get attached to the log message. So we can analyze and see what is this token, what are the parts, what is trace ID, what is span ID, all that I'll be able to analyze. Guys, is that okay? Yeah. So we are still in the distributed log tracing chapter itself. We have just finished phase 1, where all the microservices were simple. We have also looked at the steps that are involved in phase 2. What are the steps? And once we perform these steps, we will complete phase 2. So tomorrow when we come back, we will enable all the phase 2 related steps and see how things work. And once we complete, we can move on to the other 2 phases. Is that okay, guys? So I'm not completing this. Tomorrow morning when I come back, I will continue from here. Okay, the implementation perspective. Yeah. But before I wind up, in the afternoon, okay, in the afternoon, I want you to go through 2 security related two security related discussions. Yeah, I will see how I have recorded. One recording will contain discussions on CORS and one more point. I will see whether I will enable that or I will enable one of the other topics. Okay, so wait for messages to come to you on the general or the microservices channel. Yeah, by 1 o'clock, I will share the recordings that you have to go through, and I will also share one small message in the MS Team channel. Yeah, so I want all of you to look at it, and afternoon, please plan and complete that e-learning. Is that okay, all of you? Yeah. So that's it in the morning hours. Morning hour, I will be continuing with the distributed log discussion tomorrow in the morning, and then I will move on to the other topic. What you should do in the afternoon, I will get back to you in the MS Team Microservices channel, and I will upload the relevant recordings and the relevant programs there. Okay. So that's it for the morning hours, guys.